Very good morning to all of you, the New York audience. It's a hybrid mode. I am Professor Sarat C, and I'm moderating the session. And this roundtable would have participations of a lot of distinguished politicians, business strategists, economists, the diplomats, journalists, from across the world. Primarily, the participation is coming from US, UK, India, and Middle East. In fact, it's going to be a little long drawn roundtable. We expected our Professor Bill Rammell to chair this session, and I somehow am saying that. He is extending his apologies that he's going to become a part of it. But you do have the other distinguished people, and as it builds, we have some more people joining us. But there are some dropouts since we are all affected online and offline by the war. So it seems that the kind of the response that we would have got with a lot of people, but seems that there's some conspicuous absence. But let's carry on. And I see quite a few already have joined this session. And I'm expecting others to come in. I see among our roundtable participants, speakers, we have Mr. Somesh Arora. Somesh, I'm getting you, I guess. I am seeing Mr. Somesh Arora there.
He's there.
Yeah. So I do have Somesh Arora, because as I go and introducing, as I see their name comes up or they pop up on the screen. Somesh Arora has been a very distinguished lawyer. Is working primarily in India as an additional advocate general of Punjab. And he also runs his law firm. He also has his expansion in the Middle East. He travels to Middle East very often, with some presence in Dubai, an area which really he takes a lot of interest. So I do have, as I see, I'm just trying to, I do have Mr. Rakesh Kaul. Rakesh Kaul is there. Yeah, here he goes. So Rakesh turns up at a very short notice. I really appreciate. He has been a veteran journalist in India for more than 3 decades, headed multiple television channels, including G News Network, and he's currently the group editor with the TV9. And of course, he also has covered all the entire spectrum from print to electronic media. So he also takes a lot of interest in this region. Then I have Thomas. I probably have you from Germany. Thomas is there. So we try to get you, Thomas, into these conversations. Thomas Werner from the Lehman Brothers. He spent a lot of years there. He's a financial analyst, so probably that economic perspective would come from him. And I'm sure that other people would join sooner or later. Pankaj is there.
Dr.
I
Paul,
see, yeah,
Dr.
Mr. Pankaj
Naveen.
Paul. So I see Mr. Pankaj, great to see you after a long, long time.
Good to see you as well.
Yeah. So Pankaj, change of avatar actually kind of bemuses me. So with a grey beard, I know. So that more looks like a very saintly look. We try to bring you into the Middle East. He lives in Delaware, not very far from you, Dr. Datta, where your venue is, meeting venue. So I was just checking out in case he's in New York, probably he would come around, but probably he's logging in from home in Delaware.
Not in New York today. Sorry.
Yeah. So Pankaj has been a veteran media professional, worked in Middle East. In India, he was the managing editor of Hindustan Times, one of the largest English daily. Also, he was with the Gannett Publishing. So I read all these profiles. I don't really have to read from a script, so I know So, and we try to sort of bring in Pankaj into these conversations. He was also with the Wharton Business School, managing the publishing, and of course, also he is in the healthcare industry. And he takes a lot of interest in the Middle East. He frequently travels to UAE. So we are trying to bring you into the conversation. So I'm sure that other would come in. I see Navin Mansvi from Bangalore, India, logging in. Navin is, we call him the AI man from India, represents India in all the artificial intelligence forums globally. There is some technology perspective also. So we try to have your input, Navin, if you're listening to me. So let us carry on, and then I would expect other people to join in. There's quite a few talking heads. And then, as you know, that this April 21st, this global community stands at a very precarious threshold since the surprise US-Israeli airstrikes, which took place on February 28th. And the Iran war now has evolved from a very localized military operation into a very tripolar squeeze. This is how we try to float our title with the participation of Israel in this war that threatens the very foundations of the international stability. Now, the roundtable now is convinced at a very critical juncture, while a fragile 2-week ceasefire remains in place. We don't know whether it's going to end tomorrow or not, because today is the last day we are holding the line. So the Strait of the Hormuz, so the world's most vital energy artery, has become a site of yo-yo closures, and most recently has stuttered again on April 18 in response to the US naval blockade. So the conflict has already inflicted a staggering cost, with the Iranian economic damage now estimated to be something exceeding 300 billion. And some estimate even suggests can go up to about 1 trillion. So now the global GDP is also squeezed. And from the collapse of just-in-time logistic to the emergence of the gold, which is, that what the price is, and the digital commodity heavens, the old economic order is being forcibly re-engineered. So what we do in this roundtable today, we will dissect this collision of these geopolitical terror, the logistical paralysis, and this dual checkpoint, the reality of the Suez and the Hormuz. So Hormuz is the new Suez, we call it. So as we evaluate these scenarios ranging from rapid de-escalations to permanent regional decoupling, so we must confront a very sobering new reality. So which is fragility is the new baseline now for the 21st century global trade architecture. So I would like to bring in Pankaj into this conversation today in terms of discussing our engagement of what it is today in terms of the, if you say the Hormuz is where our discussion should begin, the risk mitigations, the capital allocation, and the operational continuity. At what point do this skyrocketing, rather, I would rather like you to pick up your point of view in terms of, say, thinking about that the business economic journalist, that the focus now certainly has moved away from who and what of this conflict towards how much and how long, because tomorrow we are not too sure. So what you see, what interest lies in this market volatility, in this corporate solvency, and these structural shifts in the global financial order? Pankaj Paul.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join you all. Perspective, obviously, right, for each one of us is a little bit different, given the fact that I am in healthcare now and working for a very large organization that is headquartered in Abu Dhabi. So the perspective that I think we are looking at is that, kind of the way that Sarat framed it very nicely is that I guess in this era of disputed trade routes, because that's what Hormuz presents itself. So the resilience, right, in any industry, especially in healthcare, is no longer operational, right? It's essential. From our perspective, the priority is simple. You have to ensure that the geopolitics never undermines or determines any specific kind of outcomes, right? So the discussion is focusing around the oil flows and trade routes, but the immediate impact for us, as an industry, I think is already visible. From our perspective, right, the disruption is especially on the drugs, which are imported mostly from the US and from Western Europe. So we're essentially moving from just-in-time medicine to just-in-case medicine. As we move forward, I think the stagflation conversation, like Sarat mentioned, will focus on the macroeconomics, for the time being. But I think it manifests itself differently, right? So if you input rising costs, you combine with the constrained affordability, and these things just don't slow growth. They can delay diagnosis, they can interrupt treatments, and they can force difficult choices about who can afford to get this care and when they can afford to get this care. So I don't think there are any answers. I think there'll be more questions as we move forward. Honestly, don't know where this thing ends.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's probably the right way to know, because we do not know really. Things may change as the deadline, the ceasefire is going to either end or is probably going to be extended. We really don't know. So now, Rakesh, I probably would take this conversation to you in terms of, like, for instance, if you talk about the shift in the global financial sector, the rise of the conflict neutral currencies, that we see that, the huge fluctuation in the currencies, we are seeing a surge in the yuan denominated energy trades, and also the cryptocurrency settlements due to the war, to bypass the traditional banking system. So is the Hormuz crisis inadvertently accelerating this de-dollarization of the global oil trade? Or I would say the other trade, the associated trade.
Thanks,
Rakesh.
thanks, Sharath. Yeah, thank you, for inviting me, and I am happy to have so many eminent people on the panel. Hear them out. I have unfortunately a call at 7, so I see it's a emerging landscape. I don't think individually or collectively we have any view of how it's going to pan out. I'll answer your specific question on the currency unrest that we're witnessing right now. But to my mind, first and foremost, we are witnessing a global disorder of the economy, which in my 40 years in the newsroom, I have never seen such disruption. And, rightly or wrongly, we have no idea how it's going to pan out the next movement. At the global level, topic is trade, terrorism, and tankers. I have an additional element to it, which is top line. The entire top line of corporate world in India and abroad is up for major reset for the negative. So that's a major sign of worry. We talk about three big buckets right now: fuel crisis, we talk of food crisis. Now I add the third one, which is the fiscal health crisis of nations, of corporates, and individuals. From an Indian perspective, if you allow me, we were looking at being an outlier in terms of still being the largest and fastest growing economy with a lot of positive, tailwinds, so to say, navigate the existing headwinds which are facing the global economy. But that headroom is over now. We are obviously, like many other countries, placed very precariously. On the trade piece, we have had some intelligence to get into FTAs, but we've got into those zones at a time when it's going to take about a year on the minimum to operationalize them. So that makes that vulnerability even more pronounced, even when we have the hope that the traditional trade disorder that has happened because of Trump is going to be navigated, because we have FTAs with Europe, we have FTAs with UK, and we have a Middle East relationship in the economic zone through SEPA, which is a good template now, for instance, with UAE. But having said that, this is an extremely uncertain zone, Sharath. All of us have to be really worried. And I think, policymakers in the country and globally need to align. But the problem is alignment. There are individual nations' aspirations. The Atmanirbhar piece is being, put into play for each and individual country. At the core of it is economic lordship of critical, minerals, of oil that the US is trying to, so to say, corner. China is playing the, leeway in terms of trying to bring in. So ultimately, we may safely conclude that the war for Venezuela and for Iran is essentially for controlling the fuel economy. So in that sense, uh, we really don't know where is it headed. And we have seen the brunt of the challenge in India already with the LPG crisis. In hindsight, we should have been able to navigate and predict such unprecedented, zones, because 80% or 90% of our imports are in the fuel zone from outside of India. When Prime Minister Modi came in 2014, he made the right announcement about, cutting down it by 50% the energy imports. We made some, movement in our shift to renewables, but our dependence on and our vulnerability in, imports for energy are far too serious not to be worried about. So in that sense, I think the bigger challenge is India is a country where there has been a lot of growth in the last 10 years, but there is a rising inequality. When such global challenges happen in which you have no control, the unknowns are so large that your knowns also, fail to save you. In that sense, the civil unrest, distress, distrust, and that uncertainty about what happens tomorrow is hitting all of us, like no one else. And let's remember and let's accept and admit that the older order of globalization is dead. We have to look at reimagining each piece of foreign policy. Now it's not foreign policy, it's economic policy. Increasingly, the role of diplomat has to change. He has to pivot away from looking at foreign policy. The cusp of geopolitics and geoeconomics has been dominated now by geoeconomics. So we need to relearn, we need to unlearn, we need to reimagine ourselves and quickly shore up our capability to be dependent, self-dependent on these very, very, very critical inputs that we have as imports today.
Yeah, thank you. Rakesh, you really have raised quite a few interesting points here. And I mean, I'd rather pick up something that what Mark
on your specific question on reimagining the currency. Yeah, these are early trends. I personally foresee, there's a lot of expectation and excitement about BRICS currency. Now, yuan, shaping up in a manner. Of course, China has been working very hard to strengthen its currency, and but I don't see de-dollarization happening anytime soon. And dollar will continue to be a key player in the international currency market, and Indian rupee for foreseeable future will continue to be hedged against dollar, good, bad, ugly. So we'll have to live with that reality. And on BRICS currency, my view is that the government of India is not very keen to push that on its top agenda when the BRICS summit happens in September.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, we are really far from it, BRICS. But, something, we are rallying behind probably Mark Carney's statement. And we all know what he said about that, how the middle economies must come together. And that probably can create kind of an alternative currency, hope for an alternative currency in whatever form, we don't know. Though Canada is not a BRIC member. But, Pankaj, I'm just picking up, and since one thing apparently is very clear, I'm just really trying to take you a little away from the healthcare sector and trying to see that, since you are there, spend a lot of time in UAE, one thing is apparently clear: if these Gulf air cargo hubs remain under threat today, what is that? What is the ripple effect on these high value, very time sensitive industries like pharmaceuticals? Like you come from pharmaceuticals and even semiconductors. Pankaj.
I mean, it's not that different than what Rakesh just mentioned, right? Over the years, people have spoken about energy independence as a pillar of national resilience, right? So almost the same logic applies to healthcare broadly as an ecosystem. Countries that invest in local capabilities, across pharmaceuticals, diagnostics, advanced therapies, I think will be much far better positioned in the way the world is being set up. Ultimately, I think healthcare is becoming a system of last resort in this increasingly unstable global order. I think our responsibility is to ensure continuity of care, right, under any obligation, whether you're a public sector, whether you're a sovereign or a private sector entity. I think because in this environment, resilience is a strategy. Resilience is no longer a strategy, right? It's almost like it's a moral obligation. So I think that if this disruption is short-lived, systems will absorb it. But I think if it's prolonged, it will fundamentally reset how we approach a lot of these perspectives, forcing a shift towards more regional manufacturing, higher structural costs, and new models of delivery. I think at this point, it seems like the prudent approach would be to prepare for the latter, rather than speculating where this might end or when this might end.
Yeah. No, of course, as you understand that, the shift in this global financial architecture now, I'm talking primarily from the point of view of an institution and insolvency. So are these major global shipping and these reinsurance firms capitalized well enough to survive this blockade? Or should we be looking for a next kind of a Lehman moment within the maritime sector, that everything will just collapse? Pankaj.
So look, broadly, most industries, right? Most industries are now just set up to be just in time, right? Because we had become used to a specific level of supply chain efficiency. And so there is no reason for me to say, for the sake of discussion, stockpile any life-saving drugs, which I have to buy. Every emergency room in every hospital is required to have a certain subset of it, but they expire early, right? So we, as an industry, people generally tend not to do that, because I know that I can get the required drugs from the UK or from New York or from Texas in less than 24 hours. But this, as I mentioned earlier, right, this is now becoming just in case medicine, right? So we need to build resilient, localized systems that ensure continuity, but that applies to food, that applies to anything else that you can think of. In most parts, I mean, I think the US is still kind of immune to that shock. In most parts of the world, we are hearing reports of shortages in X, Y, or Z. I don't think there's a short-term solution for this. I think we moved away from this whole notion of having these massive stockpiles. I don't know when that changes or how that changes, honestly, in the short term.
Yeah. Rakesh, but one thing is very obvious. In the blockade, this prolonged war, there are winners and losers. So what you see that beyond this obvious plan for the airlines and some of these manufacturing industries, which sectors are quietly profiting from this conflict?
I don't frankly see anyone profiting from it. I mean, there are countries which have, so to say, taken advantage of this, which is Russia to some extent, because, it was operating and selling oil at a very reduced rate. And post spike in the prices, they, got a bump up. And then, in countries like China and India both have started importing again heavily. So in that sense, but, sectors from a B2B domain, business domain, every sector is impacted. I think the entire MSME piece in India is absolutely hit. It was already doing badly. Big ticket companies have put a question mark on their any expansion. They are actually looking at trimming down costs. And the first and foremost priority for any corporate in any sector, I don't have an exception, is to be able to so to say keep your head above ground, which itself is going to be a challenge. As Pankaj rightly pointed out, we don't have any clarity of when it's going to end. We are all hoping and praying that it ends soon. But end soon, every day, every minute added is an additional burden on the top line, as I mentioned, of countries, of companies, and individuals. And, I think every country, including America, is wounded by this incapability of its, leadership to close something that they felt was started with a great intent. So I think the intent is under question. The closure is under question. And then if that sets the order, the whole world, peace is at disruption. So, every second added to this conflict, we're hoping that we have a ceasefire extension or we have some, conclusion, but we are hurt badly already. So we'll need a lot of time, what we call healing time, for the economies of the world to really assemble and then say, well, finally, we hope for no more trouble. We began with tariff. Now we have, tankers, as you rightly mentioned. We don't know where it's going. I mean, imagine an escalation in the Middle East, and then, the nuclear button and a panic situation and resilience of Iran to manage the American aggression, if we can call it, is itself a story to tell for generations to come. But America's lack of capability to close what it started, both in Vietnam here, is something that's hurting all of us. So expansionist from a military perspective, trajectory of US is a big global challenge, and India is not immune from it. India is in fact going to be really facing the heat. It's already facing the heat.
Yeah. But you see, I mean, Pankaj, this is, and I'm sure that you must be tempted to take a vessel through the Hormuz sometimes because you spend a long time there. So you. What about the supply chain?
On a lighter note, Sharad, the only thing in this is that Hormuz has become a household name.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody is worried about Hormuz kab khulega. Ye Hormuz Hormuz gar ki kahani hai.
Okay, I mean, rather we should be. This is what Singapore was the other day saying that we will take over the Malacca. You see, so now the focus is in Hormuz. We never know what would happen to the other straits across the world. But in terms of supply chain and resourcing, Pankaj, are we seeing a very temporary pivot to the land routes, or is this the final catalyst for just in case economy, as you mentioned, where the Western companies or the firms permanently move manufacturing to Americans and the Eastern Europe to avoid the Middle East risk. Probably that way is a kind of a landmass to the landmass trade, like those old days of the Silk Route.
Yeah, I don't know. I think human and institutional and sovereign memory seems to be really short, right? You would have figured that we'd learned a lot during COVID. And we said, you know what, there is a need to head up, sort of these sovereign ecosystems wherein we can at least, stuff that's absolutely essential for the population should be available. But I don't think in this era of globalization, anyone is prepared to make the change back to where we were, around 25, 30 years ago. The US is so significantly dependent on supplies from so many different parts of the world. It's impossible to say that you can have all those ecosystems set up in the US in a matter of weeks, months, or even years at this matter. I don't think the workforce in the US is ready to go back to that level of manufacturing, regardless of what the Trump White House says. These things are generational. Again, this is just me, right? Just my opinion. I don't see this going back soon. Something should, for sure, right? For sure, they should. You need to have resilience on certain ecosystems in certain vertical, but nowhere else.
Right. I would like to bring in Professor Joe Roll. I see that she's here. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
How are you doing? I think you have been there. I just noticed that how I am missing one of the most prominent voices from the northern hemisphere. Now it's just now all interest is here. Now you tell me, being an American, for the average American consumer, how long can this domestic political stability hold in terms of your gallon gasoline?
No.
That becomes a semi-permanent new normal due to this Middle Eastern scarcity.
Well, number one, the country is very much diverse, although much of the country is experiencing the same thing in higher gas prices. Some places more than others. If you are more inland, not where any refineries are, your gas is probably over $4. a gallon. But I was just recently in, where was it? Belize or Honduras. Gas is over $5 a gallon. So I think worldwide, everybody is feeling the pinch. And here in the US, everyone is just wondering, when is it going to end? And when will gases, right before the crisis, I think gas was it was like below $3 a gallon. And to take in the next week, it shot up. And just to have an explanation, well, we're in a conflict, most Americans are feeling it. And they're feeling it not only at the gas tank, the price of food has gone up, the price, everything is being passed on to the consumer. So when you see people have just started prioritizing what it is they want to spend, what is their effective demand for goods and services, things are shifting, and businesses are feeling it as well. So everybody wants it to stop. I don't know when it will stop. And I don't know if things will go back, if we'll see some sticky prices going downward. Just because the conflict stopped doesn't mean it will show up at the gas pipe immediately. It usually takes a little longer for us to feel the benefit from that. I just say, I don't say much about geopolitics. I just say, I I don't know who could claim how much good is coming out of this. I haven't heard very many arguments. And I'm not speaking for everyone, because as I said, the country is really, really split and on opinion, but everybody is impacted by the costs going up everywhere. So that's all I can say about it.
Yeah. And of course, no, you have raised very good questions about you mentioned about this food inflation and being in people in the global south, they are now worried about the food inflations with this energy fertilizer link broken by these gas shortages. So what is the projected impact on these 2026 harvest prices in the global north and south? There's certainly the food inflation certainly has affected all of us, and and how this is really going to impact the harvest prices. You do have the harvest coming up, both in global north and global south.
Oh, is that a question to me or to the panel?
Yes, that's a question to you. That's a question to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there's,
you speak for both global north and south, because you come from global south and then to north, so you expand yourself across both.
All right. So as an economist, it's supply and demand. Prices fluctuate in terms of how much supply and how much demand. I believe that we're going to see demand decrease, as some of the panelists have noted, with countries trying to avoid some of the disruptions. And but I still think the prices are going to be up, and that's going to cause a problem for people, countries really, that have to import more. And it's going to have a lot of pressures. But honestly, it depends on how much supply we are able to bring to market and how much demand it will be globally for that supply. And you can take that across any of the commodities or any of the goods and services. In this country, I can tell you, for food prices, it's a shift. It's a shift. You go to market, right? And you buy some eggs. They used to cost $1, and now it's $3 or $4. You're just going to buy less eggs. So I think it's down from the global micro to the global macro to the micro. We're going to see shifts in demand, which will shift supply. And I believe that means prices are going to continue to go up until we can address the issue.
Okay. in this case, Pankaj, I take this question to you. I mean, we live in terrible uncertain time. And probably, currently this year, for the last couple of years, probably we have more armed conflict. I was counting some 100 plus armed conflict, very low key. Some are very low key. Some are very apparent outbursts like Ukraine, Russia, or this tripartite war. We live in terrible uncertain times. And this uncertain time, Pankaj, has created the kind of a new baseline. So if we accept that the fragility is this new baseline, suppose you are wearing the hat of a Fortune 500 CEO, how do you communicate to your shareholders that when the world's most important trade checkpoint is effectively kind of a coin flip between peace and total blockade, what you would say, what you would tell them? What would be your message to?
Sharat, I think Professor Paul is not there. You
Okay,
have other
right.
panelists.
So I'll take this question to Professor Joe.
No, you have other panelists, Professor.
No, I just have to. I have one question. I see Somesh here. Somesh.
And Naveen Mansai.
Yeah, Naveen here. I'm just trying to have Somesh. Somesh, are you there?
Yes, Sarat, I'm here.
Yeah, sure. Somesh, of course, I reserve that question. I would ask Professor Joe to come to this question. And then I will have something very pertinent legal questions for you. Professor Joe, shall I repeat that question or shall I have the question for? How do you communicate as a Fortune 500 CEO, company CEO, to your shareholders? What would be their expectation during this uncertain time? Professor Joe.
Okay, so I can tell you some of the companies I'm familiar with that some of the companies I'm working with, and I can't say it's everybody, but in one firm I'm working with, this has been a banner year for them. The uncertainty in market causes an uptick in their business as they see it. And I think a lot of CEOs are saying, let's stick to core business. Let's do what we do best. And there are some sectors that are really seeing a boom. The tech sector, I can tell you one. Google this week is announcing a whole new suite of announcements where they are looking to do the platform for agentic AI across the board, hoping to sidestep some of the advantages both OpenAI and Anthropic have. So I think it depends on where you sit. If you're doing good core business, the geopolitics is uncertain, but you continue to do your good business, and that's what you tell your stakeholders. You don't tell your stakeholders you're trying to get involved in an area that is so globally explosive. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, thank you. So as the questions, your legal area, it is a big canvas. It consists of the international treaties, contractual obligations, or the jurisdictional challenges, maritime trade. You tell me, since this transit, if you are looking at a very specific situation of a transit passage versus this territorial sovereignty, which Iran has extended its territorial sovereignty to Hormuz. So since this Strait of Hormuz is an international strait under the UNCLOS, and I refer to it, it falls under somewhere Article 3744, between 37 and 44. Can a coastal state legally justify a selective blockade against specific flags under the guise of self-defense? We do understand that it is a gross violation, but can you explain us how it is so? Somesh.
Good morning, Sarat, and good evening from India. So Sarat, first I ask question to myself. I have a question to myself. When oil stops moving from Strait of Hormuz, does the law also stops moving? is the law able to move with it or stop there? So when your question comes to me, I need to cite a couple of judgments, international judgments. So the law is very, very apparently both sides. Judges see it differently. Law says something else. And this is not the first time. This has been tested before International Court of Justice. I was just going through the judgment. So this is a case called Corfu Channel case, which was between United Kingdom and Albania as back as 1949. Now, here, UNCLOS Article 38, transit passage through international straits, including Strait of Hormuz, is non-negotiable. How the courts are seeing to it. It's not subject to consent of the coastal state. It cannot be suspended or conditioned on political compliance. In theory, it is one of the most robustly protected rights in the international law. But, so this is law, but in practice, vessels are detained, diverted, subject to prolonged regulatory inspections. So there is no formal blockade, no declared war. Yet commerce collapses. The gap between legal guarantee and operational reality is vast and growing. So when you see this entire scenario, now as a lawyer, if I have to see to it, the test which I have to apply is it a force majeure situation, or it's a regulatory compliance issue, or it's a self-defense mechanism? So we need to see to it. And then there are certain very interesting, so I'll answer your question first with the same judgment, how it was seen by Court of International Justice. It says that
we're talking about the international maritime law and the sovereign rights.
Correct. So I'm giving you a judgment straight away. Every state has an obligation not to allow knowingly its territory to be used for acts contrary to the rights of other states. The whole intent is it's a negative covenant. This was this judgment which I used, this was the first major ruling of International Court of Justice. Here, UK claimed Albania had failed to warn of mines in its territorial waters, causing the loss of 2 destroyers. The ICJ upheld the claim, establishing a foundational duty of territorial stewardship under international law. Now, what happens? Today, the duty is tested wherever coastal states enable or tolerance interference with the transit passage, even indirectly. Attribution and acknowledgement have been engineered out of reach. Now, again, the obligation endures.
Samesh, one is
accountability does not.
Of course, there are certain impunity measures. But how do you enforce? Even if you, as you said, that it's already a case, which year it happened, these Albania and the UK?
So Albania was 1949. Then we have 86, Nicaragua versus United States. Again, here the whole intent was that. Then there was a maritime conflict, which was as back as in 2003. Here, okay, I'll use this case. Maybe it connects with you directly to your question. So I could get about 6-7 cases. I was anticipating this question from you. Now, this is the case where oil platforms case. This is between Islamic Republic of Iran versus United States. This is 2003 ICJ, again, International Court of Justice. Now, please bear with me for a couple of minutes. The court cannot accept that attacks on platforms could be justified as measures necessary to protect essential interests of the United States. So here Iran went to ICJ by saying that their platforms were attacked, and this is 2003. How the United States destroyed Iranian oil platforms in 1987-88, claiming self-defense. So right now the situation is almost similar. Claiming self-defense against Iranian attacks on Kuwaiti tankers. The ICJ rejected the necessity argument, finding that US has not proved the platforms were used for military purposes targeting US vessels, and that the destruction was disproportionate to any legitimate aim. The ruling reinforces that states cannot rely on board security claims to justify force against economic infrastructure. In the current environment, where energy facilities and commercial vessels are both targets and pressure points, now this case defines the legal ceiling of permissible response. So if we take this example, which is as recent as 2003, similar kind of arguments were raised by US there also, that through these platforms, there were attacks on Kuwaiti tankers. However, Iran won the case by saying that you have to establish that these platforms were used for the attacks. So there has to be a difference between the territory which is used for some kind of attacks and the essential amenities and the platforms from where essential amenities are provided. What they are trying to do right now is they are blocking that. So this blockage per se is not permissible on the ground of self-defense. So if we see this case, there are others also, but apparently this case is very near to the fact which we are discussing today. So the take as on now is that US, even there is a self-defense, or maybe Iran also has a self-defense kind of argument. Both the countries have their own reasons for the war, undeclared war. As of now, there's no war declared. It's more of self-defense mechanism both the countries are trying to claim. However, the attack is on the essential commodities, for which the world is facing. So tomorrow, both the parties will definitely fight at ICJ on the claims. And as of now, looking the whole situation like, it looks Iran might have a better case to argue, though Iran also has now stopped those international waters, which if we see that Albania case, they are bound to clear it out. Except those certain regulatory compliances, they cannot stop the international waters. So am I able to clear my point, sir?
Yeah, of course. But you see, in this contest between the coastal states and the states which are at war, it seems to be both seem to be right at some point of time, and both are also losing their ground. If you look at some, for instance, my question would be that does this US-led naval, kind of a mine clearing operation, which actually took place some days back, and that actually constitute a very lawful exercise of the freedom of navigation. But does it infringe on the sovereign right of these coastal states? Because there is an absence of a formal UN Security Council mandate here. So how do you come to terms with these legality of the countermeasures?
So now, sir, there are two arguments. So there are two arguments which you raised right now. One is laying of mines, which is an allegation by US that there are mines which are laid by Iran. And second is a self-defense.
Also, Sumesh, if you can draw a parallel to the Malacca. Yesterday we are talking about Malacca, which Singapore is not entering into that, not monopolizing that strait. And they have made it very clear. The foreign minister has made it very clear. Yeah.
So given circumstances, first let's take Hormuz only. Now, US is taking a defense that there are mines laid by Iran. As of now, no mine, to my knowledge, has still exploded. It's only an allegation. So some Navy ships, they are stopping, or there are certain counterattacks but apparently the mines per se, that allegation is still to be proven. And second, US says that we are clearing those mines. But both of them are blocking. So if both of them are blocking without any cognate proof, apparently both have allegations and counter allegations. But what they are doing, on the name of self-defense, both are blocking the international waters. And the world at large is facing that. So now as a lawyer, if I have to see, it will be tested in the court that who can justify and prove that who was right and who was wrong. On the face of it, neither Iran can stop this, nor can US. US is stopping at one place, Iran is stopping at other place. And now they are charging so the kind of tariff and fees for shipment, allowing shipments to travel to those waters. Again, that is total breach of international treaties and maritime laws. But now they can take a defense given situation, but this won't be a force majeure situation. Because if you take a longer route, if you stop there in the water for some time, the couple of matters, the courts have decided that these are also foreseen circumstances. Things can happen like that. Maybe right now, because there were stoppages by Iran or US, but there can be floods and there can be certain earthquakes or certain situations where those ships might have been delayed by weeks or months. So that's a foreseen circumstances which the courts may not agree in the given circumstances because it's not a declared war. Had been a declared war, then definitely it's a force majeure situation.
One more question before I bring in Naveen Mansfi into the conversation, because he would primarily bring in his technology perspective, pivoting from the legal perspective into perspective of this crisis. But one question, Somesh, if you talk about the sovereign immunity for the escorts, like for instance, we see also a lot of civilian vessels stranded. If a civilian vessel under the military escort is struck by the mine or drone, like we're talking about the mine now, does the escorting nation bear the state of responsibility for failing to protect the vessel, or does this vessel's civilian status preclude military liability?
But why should a state through which these ships are passing through must protect these civilian ships? They're under no obligation. Iran is under no obligation to give protection to these civilian ships. They say international water, they are passing through. They are rather stopping on the name of certain regulatory compliances. They said that they have some kind of apprehensions that these ships may be misused, that the kind of grounds they're developing. But apparently, on the face of it, these are all stories, they're all theoretical stories, which every party is trying to develop. But if you see on the legal platform, end of the day, Iran is under no obligation. So is US. This is all self-imposed obligations which they have taken because they want the control. So the game is of control and not of giving safe passages. So we have to live with this whole situation. But this will be definitely tested once upon a time. It will be definitely tested in ICJ, where both the parties have their own reasons. But on the face of it, whatever little law I have seen to the subject, it looks like that it will be very difficult for US to prove that Iran used certain drone attacks and all that, because there is not per se any big damage. And if there is a damage, US has to claim damage only for US ships and not for other ships. Every country has a right to reach out for the claims if they have any against those attacks if they have suffered. Correct, Sarat?
Yeah. Naveen, hope you're there. I know Naveen?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah. So as a technologist and an artificial intelligence expert, Naveen, I now would like to shift towards the digitization of the warfare. Today we are very scared, even says that now AI soldiers would enter the war. So there would not be any kind of Armageddon, kind of a head-on collision, like the Roman warriors. it's about the digitization of the warfare and the automation of the trade and the vulnerability of this critical infrastructure. So in this context of the war, where the cyber attacks and these electronic warfare have already caused near total internet blackouts, how do you see you as a technologist, your role to explain us what the smart systems are, both as a weapon or as a shield? We obviously want to be protected from this. So would you like to really tell us that what it is now? There's already a 60-hour internet blackout some days back, the cyber attacks in these wars on site. And
Yes.
I'm sure that the entire golf-based business actually built their entire offline resilience into this B2B operation to survive future digital siege. So would
Yeah,
you
true. Very
explain
true.
us? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the whole world is going to be into more serious on this cybersecurity and the defense. And all the nations are trying to put money now and trying to somehow inject AI more or less. Every company is following the same kind of follow strategy right now, including cybersecurity and the warfare. You can see right now China is developing in a big way. China is developing all the sci-fi kind of warfare with the AI power system. For example, you see the anti-radar system managed by the Iran. People claim that it is nothing but the China's technology, which are AI powered. So you can see that warfare has changed completely in this Iran-Israel war. You can see that Iran has given surprise to the world because no one has seen this kind of anti-radar kind of activities managed by the missiles. That is already there. I think China is building two big things. One is the AI-powered warfare in a big way. Second thing, robotics. So all kind of the warfare can happen by the robots eventually. That is the plan. And China has demoed, I remember, 1 lakh army in robot form already. So most probably the next war by China on the land will happen through the robots, via robots. That is the prediction. And the second part is that all the country which never focused on the AI and all will focus a lot on AI and defense and the aerospace technology to be ahead of the others. That is the new trend coming up. So I can see there is a good opportunity for the AI world. AI can see the next wave in this defense and aerospace and cybersecurity form. Uh, and one more thing I want to highlight right now. So right now the AI is going to be costly for the country which has a less energy system because the AI works on the cloud, and the cloud depends on the energy. So country which has a cheap, scalable energy will win the race, mostly because they are cost effective. They can support the training of AI. They can support the inference of AI. They can really manage all kind of hi-fi AI system, And country which have a less, not cheap energy like Japan and UK and India, which has not cheap energy, will suffer because of the high energy and the AI training, AI inference will be costly in that part of the world. And I think it will affect their power in terms of AI. So world is going to divide into two parts. One block will be the cheap energy block, and second can be the costly energy block. Cheap energy block will get more advantage in the AI training, AI inference, and all kind of AI kind of expertise. And the other block will not get advantage in terms of leveraging AI. That is the one trend I can see right now. This war onwards.
Yeah, right. No, of course, no, but let's see, you explained that pretty well. But primarily, I see this. I primarily want to know more. Want to know more about these warfare at the sea, the electronic warfare at the sea. Since we know that the interest is now sustained around Hormuz, with the GPS spoofing, and I'm primarily talking about what happened with that 60-hour internet blackout. So with this GPS spoofing and this electronic interference, now standard in kind of a tanker war, what these emerging AI-driven navigation tools can help, how they can help the civilian tankers maintain their dead reckoning accuracy when satellite signals are weaponized. And that happened when, obviously, the rapid firing at one of the India's vessel. They said that, you are not turned on your signals.
Yeah, I think GPS is one technology. There are similar technology also run by the China. The China doesn't depend on the GPS. So I think GPS and other technology are going into in a more deep mode right now. I mean, this is very internal design, I think, and very difficult to explain how they work at a device layer, network layer. So now there are multiple layers: device layer, network layer, and all. So at this both layers, people are trying to leverage AI. Okay, so I think it's a very complex game, and China has advantage on that. So I feel that this kind of internet blackout and all those things are very new, and it under the study for all of us. We are studying all those things in detail. Before divulging all this point, I have to do more R&D to be candid regarding that, like how they happen, device layer, network layer, and all. So it's very deep analysis. It needs a deep analysis to really dismantle this kind of internet blackout reality.
Okay, right. Now, there's always an interest about these predictive crisis modeling. Now, we know we are very fond of all these LLMs today. Can now these large language models or these predictive analytics so far, can this forecast the events by monitoring these kind of a pre-war digital
I think the world has changed.
So that we can avoid a black swan event like this, which is, or is it a kind of an event which is beyond the reach of AI now?
I can add one thing. See, difficult to predict by the LLM directly because LLM uses the previous data to understand, to estimate whatever in future. So they use the previous knowledge and data and having some assumptions basically. So whatever happened in 20, 30, 40 years back, so they believe those assumptions. So under those assumptions, they predict the future. Now those assumptions are not true nowadays, so difficult to get the very clear pictures. It can help of LM directly, but we have a hope. We can simulate something. We can add simulations to the game, simulate now, and then use LLM. So now we have to do multiple things: simulations of for all those new activity, and then use LLM on that. Then we can predict in a better way. So I feel that purely LLM cannot explain it nicely, but we need to add the power of simulation, and then LLM can be helpful in predicting the future.
Yeah. Okay. So this, I'm saying that still that we have some hope going with these large language models, but AI in terms of the supply chain autonomy. I'm primarily talking about, everyone is talking about why do risk a life and a limb in Hormuz? What are the alternative dynamic rerouting, or if this can be attained through something like an AI, involving AI in the supply chain? Now, how are these AI-driven logistic platforms currently recalculating these Hormuz multiplier to automatically pivot this cargo to kind of a middle corridors, much before these human operators even recognize there is a bottleneck? So you see, this is where,
very nice point. So basically, very nice point. So AI try to optimize the traffic thing. So basically, if you are having the supply chain requirement, and if you use the AI can optimize the route. Yeah, figure out the best possible route to optimize that. So example, if there are many possibility, maybe humans have never tried many possibility because of one or two reasons. But AI can really simulate in a much better manner. AI can figure out what can be other possibility, other time zone, other kind of landlocked areas, maybe with a higher cost. Maybe the whatever cost can be the other priority. But feasibility part, AI can be helpful in terms of finding out the supply chain new routes. So we can predict, we can find out the new routes, uh, with the help of AI. But we have to have a digitizing factor of, we have to digitize all those routes with the proper information. Then they can really try to predict or identify the new possible routes to manage the supply. Uh, given that there is a hope, they can figure out, they can identify the route. You know, maybe the Malacca route, whatever and all, Malacca route and all, they can figure out what can be the optimal cost. Even the cost can be higher, but even in that category also, they'll figure out what can be the lowest possible price rise. The example, if that route is not possible, the second best possible route can happen in this manner. So AI can find out the best alternative that AI can do basically. We have to really work on that. We have to really figure out all those routes and all, and we have to estimate based on those kind of informations. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to bring in Thomas. Are you still there? Thomas Werner from Germany, Frankfurt. Thomas, I see you here on the screen.
Yes, he's there. He is
Yeah,
there.
yeah, Thomas. Yeah. I know you have been. I've been giving us out for a while now. Now, I just want you to bring into this conversation, Thomas. And now, since you are an ex-Lehman Brothers, you're a financial analyst, you understand the finance really well. I was seeking you out on that conversations when we were talking to Pankaj and Rakesh. In terms of now, again, I'll come back to discuss the shift in the global financial architecture now. And I'm sure that you also would have your view in terms of that. How do you see a surge in this kind of a yuan denominated energy trades and the cryptocurrency settlements to bypass these the entire traditional banking system? You think this Hormuz crisis has really opened up this, that we are accelerating to the de-dollarization of the global oil trade and the other trade, the question which I asked Rakesh and Pankaj earlier?
Yes. I see a very important. I see a very important point. An additional point. Given the current geopolitical developments, we can see just how important it is not only to think about sustainability in all the areas, but also to actually put into practice for example, in the energy sector and in the financial sector. But let me stay with the financial sector, with the energy sector. One argument is that is frequently heard here is that this requires increased investment, which is currently not feasible at the moment. Consequently, I have examined how a partnership with private equity investors, for example, make such an investment possible and should therefore be considered in all future deliberations. In particular, that the fact that private equity investors are willing to invest with a focus on sustainable energy supply and to share the same goal, namely sustainable and stable energy, could be a promising idea. Sure, we have to think about facts like a new governance models, and new governance structures, and similar things. But in my investigation, there it is possible to find a common solution. We have to think about this new practice of a new way to finance energy, sustainable energy, and also we have to think about how can help AI to find a possible new investment, maybe an energy investment or a normal stock or a common investment, and AI can help or could help to find the right investment and the right finance for this. And so I think we have to go on the capital markets. We have to go new ways. We have to find new solutions. A new solution could be AI, could be a private equity or something like this.
Okay, now just a matter now to capture what you said, essentially, that we have to start looking for the alternatives. The world already has started looking for alternatives in form of the cryptocurrency for the settlements. And if you are saying this, somehow the world is losing, to be honest with you. It's a sweeping statement to be made, but it's actually true that they're losing faith in dollar. So,
Yes.
so what is that which is going to substitute dollar now?
Yes, yes. It's an interesting point. It's a very interesting point. You talked about cryptocurrencies. The problem is with cryptocurrency, it is very difficult to produce real assets like energy, supply chain. This is not possible with, or is nearly impossible to produce with cryptocurrency this energy. And so, from my point of view, we have to go a step back and have to come to normal investments without cryptocurrency, not without AI, but we have to go back a step back to real assets like energy or energy supply chains.
Okay, sure. Thank you. I would like to keep this floor open. I see a lot of other delegates in the screen. If anyone would like to come into this conversation, you're welcome. And within the next few minutes, obviously, we'll close this roundtable. But if anyone, I see a lot of delegates who would like to come into this conversation, would have any specific points, any observations about any of the speaker or your own thoughts?
Sharat, I think we have another panelist, Vivek Patil.
We have we do have. I do not see it really. I think probably. So if anyone want to come in, I'm keeping this floor open. Please do come in. I see Professor Vivek Patil. I see
Professor Lakshmi Narayan raised her hand.
Professor Lakshmi Narayan, yes.
Hi. So I'm a professor at Medgar College. And even though I know Dr. Roll for a long time, and even though she didn't invite me, but I want to join in her response to your question about food prices. And I wanted to comment that the food prices had risen in the US because I follow the restaurant industry, that post the pandemic, there has been, I think, 40% increase in food prices. And that happened right during the pandemic. There was a sharp increase. And, at that time, I think consumers they understood that it's a pandemic and nobody can do anything, but they stayed high. And one of the effects was that restaurant prices increased sharply too. So the restaurant sales or revenues have been declining because they increased prices, and people remember, for the same item they are paying significantly more. So that there is a ricocheting effect of increase in food prices because the restaurant industry employs a lot of people. So I just wanted to comment that I don't know about the impact of any future increases in food prices, but it's not just in consumers changing their behavior in what they buy at the grocery store, but there are other impacts as well. And the other thing I wanted to mention about the egg prices, where they went up very sharply, and there was a lot of publicity about it. But it came down, and I think so that was for people, it's fine. It went sharply up and then it came back down again. But almost everything else, from dairy to even produce, the prices went up, and they've stayed up since the pandemic.
Thank you, Professor. I guess we are nearing our time. I think it's almost on the verge of finishing this. I would definitely thank you all these participants in the roundtable. Unfortunately, a lot of people could not join, but I'm sure that we probably would put together a better roundtable next time. But I would say that the session, I must conclude that this our roundtable highlights that the world is no longer debating a temporary trade disruption today, but a very structural collapse of the globalization, which would took about a century to build. But with the Strait of the Hormuz remaining effectively closed, and we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, as the ceasefire is ending. So due to this ongoing naval blockade and these kinetic threats, the just-in-time model has been replaced by the permanent grip of scarcity. So the findings are stark. The 2026 has become the year of energy, I would call it energy realism, where the states prioritize the physical resource control over the multilateral cooperation. So as the ceasefire deadline is ending now, so I'm sure that participant would agree that even a return of peace cannot undo the damage of the global markets. And the rise of these conflict-neutral currencies or the permanent deindustrialization risk facing Europe and Asia, I would say the world as a whole, both North and South. So I hope that this session serves a call to action to survive this tripolar squeeze, which is the title of our roundtable, and the global leaders must build a new financial and logistical architecture predicated on the reality of the fragility, which is the new baseline. So thank you so much for being a part of this roundtable. And I now give this, pass this on to Professor Dr. Datta for his closing remarks.